Hater from X Geeks. I'm super excited to have you here every day or every time we have a live stream. It's super nice to have the chance to spend at least an hour with you all. As you know, I'm always excited about anything, but especially about these live streams. And I dare to say that this one is super nice because we don't have one speaker, we have two speakers, Carlos and Lucas, which you'll meet in a couple of minutes. Before anything else, I just want to let you know that if this is the first time that you're watching our live streams, we're super happy to see you here. Welcome. And if this is not your first time watching our live streams, we're super happy as well, because it's actually very nice to see people that recurrently join and follow our content. And if you're watching us in a recording, awesome as well. Make sure to leave your comments and to leave your thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. But if you don't know us yet, let's talk about XX very shortly before we get to the presentation itself. So XX is an engineering company focused on providing capacity to product companies, and XX represents the balance, or at least a great balance that we believe so, between project and products. And our teams across Portugal work in building products while dealing with the broad stack. And if you want to know more about XGeeks, our team, our open positions, our content, our open source contributions as well, you can make sure to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Medium. We're also, of course, here on YouTube, and we believe that we do some cool stuff there, so it would be nice to see you over there as well. But as you know, I could be here talking the entire live stream about XGeeks, but I'll leave that to another moment. But with no further ado, I think we'll bring our guests to the stage. We'll bring Lucas and Carlos, which will give an exciting talk, but I leave them to give that introduction. So, Lucas.
Hi, everyone. It's
Hello.
a pleasure to be here today.
How excited are you?
I'm very excited to share some knowledge.
Nice. We're super excited to have you here, of course. Carlos, I know that you'll be taking the lead on this one. Should I share your screen?
Yes.
Okay,
I will share
perfect.
here. Just one
So
moment.
I'll remove myself from this conversation while the talk is happening. But before that, just leave all the space for questions, doubts, or feedback that you have. You can feel free to leave to use the comment section both on YouTube and Twitter. We're happy to go through the questions throughout the presentation. And yeah, go ahead. And I hope you enjoy it. And guys, you can take the stage. Carlos, I'll share your screen.
Okay.
Okay, it should be in any minute. You need to share it again.
Yes, just a minute.
Of course.
Yeah.
And we're live, I think. Awesome.
Okay. Are you guys seeing my slides? Just a moment.
We are. Exactly.
Yay. So let's start this. Well, I have given some spoiler already. So we are going to be talking about how to update applications and to performing rollouts without going through the stores, parting from a single code, right? There's a spoiler above there. We're going to talk about this guy, server-driven UI. So who watches the code? I'm Carlos Gustavo. I work at Zoop Innovation, a company in Brazil. I'm an Android developer. Lucas is going to be my partner in these presentations, and we are maintainers of some projects here, some open source projects, and we're going to talk about a project that helps you use server-driven UI in your applications. Do you want to talk a little bit, Lucas, about yourself?
So it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Lucas Fonseca. I am a developer advocate at Zupi, and Carlos is with you.
Okay, let's go. Well, to start talking about this, so we thought that it's always best to set an environment. So let's imagine that you have a flower shop, and in this flower shop proposition, you want to guarantee that all your customers will have identical designs and experience when experiencing your application across the platforms. You want to create a sense of continuity experience across the platforms. For example, if you have this flower shop, someone adds something to the shopping cart and he decided to continue that later, and later he uses mobile applications to continue. So you want your customers to have this experience of continuity, right? He's using the same applications, he's seeing the same themes, the same colors, the same type of components, and so on. You also want your customers to have a unique experience. You want to be able to change the experience according to the customer. If it is an adult, if it is a child, if it is an older person, if it is a man, if it is a woman, well, if it is from a city or from a specific country. You also want to be able to set different settings for each business rule according to the platform, if it is web, if it is iOS, or if it is Android. And you want also to be able to do updates in your content on how your screen are being seen and some flux from one screen to another without needing to create another bundle and update it through the store when using a mobile. You have to create it all again and update it, and you have to wait. So you don't have to wait, right? It's a lot of things, it's a lot of proposition, and you can do all that when you begin to understand how to implement a server-driven UI concept into your application. So server-driven UI. If you research something about server-driven UI in the internet, we will find a lot of beneficial uses that server-driven UI could help you with. So when you use an application that has this context of server-driven UI, you see that you are able to do something about the flow from the navigate actions from your one screen to another. You see that you are able to uh, make updates without needing to go through the store. You are able to test hypotheses, right? And I will talk about this a little bit in the future. Remember this word, segmentation. I will explain that later, right? It also says that it is more easier and dynamic to maintain an application that uses server-driven UI. We're going to see why. It also says that you are able to build an application in Android, iOS, and web, and also in Flutter, and also and other front ends in the future. But it says that you are able to do that only going through a single back end application. Let's see what it is. It is also flexible for designer. You are able to set the structure and content at the BFF, and the store update time is 0. Well, I'm going to get one of each as we go through. For that, we need to just make a quick reminder, right? Everybody that works with applications or for mobile or for web understand this sequence. So you have to develop a code, you have to create a type of bundle, you have to publish on the Google store or in the Apple store, right? And the user will get in contact with your code there. He will download it, he will use it. And when you need to update or fix something, you have to go into your code, update, create another bundle, publish it again, and your user have to accept this download again. He have to accept this update. Of course, there are ways with some flags to make sure that he's update, but he may refuse, right? So he may just continue to use without updating, and we have a certain amount of limitations when you need to do an update. Well, when you use this concept of server-driven UI in your application, this first step is going to be the same. You're going to code, you're going to create a bundle, publish, and your user have to download it and install it and use it. But we are seeing this guy here, this Big O. What is Big O? Is the dog? No, it's not the dog. Big O is an example that we are using in this presentation. That is a framework project, open source project that will help you implement, that has a lot of components already ready, navigation actions and everything, that will help you set this environment of server-driven UI in your application. So what does that make different in your code? Well, a lot of responsibilities from the front end about how you are going to organize your screen. If you wish this icon to be on top and this icon to be on top. I may want to change that, place one on the other side here, or I want to change the configuration in my screen. So if you want to change how these components are positioned and what type of actions they will trigger when clicked and everything, I can transfer all these responsibilities to my back end. And every time your customer will use your application, he will consume some of these informations that are coming from the back end. And for example, I can update the screen. I can change a button from place on the screen, and he will see already applied on his screen. As long as I update my backend, he will access this from my backend, and it will be updated. It's not magic, right? So the first question we must ask when we are trying to understand a new way of performing, right? How we configure an application. Is it worth? Well, one of the first things when we think of that is to understand and make a simple question. Who uses this? Because if a lot of companies that have great demands are using it, well, maybe it is something that is worth to pursue, right? So who uses server-driven UI? I believe you guys are familiar with most of these companies: Airbnb, Spotify, Uber, Lyft, that is kind of Uber on the US. iFood is an application to order foods locally. And this Itaú is a bank here in Brazil that is is probably the biggest bank in the Latin America, right? So all these guys have embraced the concept of server-driven UI. Airbnb and Spotify, more than anyone, they have presentations talking about server-driven UI from 10 years ago, right? So they have embraced it and they use it constantly in their applications, right? So it must have some good uses, otherwise they won't be using it, right? So, well, if it's not clear yet, let's say with all words what server-driven UI does. Here you can see a code that we use in our backend. You will find it that is very similar to Flutter code. It is very similar to Jetpack Compose, right? Because we use Kotlin in a declarative way when creating screens. So this code here creates this screen that you guys are seeing here. I just omitted this guy here, this arrow, and this guy here, so we could have a cleaner code. But what you're seeing here is the components that are being shown here on the screen on the right, right? And I have declared this guy here, have written what I want this button to say. I can receive also a list of actions, right? This is a property from the button. When I click here, this guy here is just an alert, but you can have a navigation action here that will prompt you to another screen. I may have make a request for my server asking for other informations besides the screen, right? And here I have some information about how to position these guys on the screen, right? You may find this if you guys have some experience with web. You will find that these terms are similar, right? Because we use we use like the flex components concept, right? To apply and to organize these components on a screen. This is, as mentioned before, a Kotlin example. And here I have more complex components, right? Showing on screen. This guy over here is a native screen created in Android following these indications. So with the server-driven UI in your back end, like I did here, you will inform the front end about where you want the front end to create all these components. So instead of using an XML file, you will use information that are coming from the back end. This is another step of that information. Here we use Kotlin, and what the Beagle framework does, he has a contract that will turn that Kotlin code back there into a JSON code, right? That will show exactly these components here, the navigation with items, the image, and a little more complex component here that will have a text, that will have an image and image interactions, right? Talking with these other components here. It's all part of the framework. That's all possible due to how these components talk to each other inside this framework. And exactly what this framework do. They make it easier to apply this concept of server-driven UI. And I will just take notice to this guy here, a style ID. That's a custom button, right? I will talk about this style ID in a moment. But just so you can see that this screen is being built here and created natively here. Is the speed okay? You guys need me to slow down a little bit? All right. You continue. Are you guys listening to me okay? I'm still on. I'm still on, Lucas. I don't know. Yes. You consider that I'm still on. Okay, let's continue. Okay, this is a familiar screen. That is the design system. I believe everyone have seen some configuration like this, saying how your components will look like, the type of colors you can use, the type of items you can use. And this is very similar, and we use something, and this is where the server-driven UI can shine once a bit more. When you have a design system, you are able to take some responsibilities from the design system as well, from the front end, and transfer it as well to the back end. Right? Here we have some examples. Just a moment, please. Here we have some examples that explains how a design system could work, right? And some changes that the design system could suffer, or that you can apply to your application. You can define that your design system will present the profile like this, with an image here, the text here, and the explanation here, or like this, with one beside the others and the two buttons closely placed, right? And you can define these as your custom component. You can define these as the full pattern on your design system, and you can access this from your backend. And everyone that needs something like this could just call this component, right? And use it just like it is, without having to do further configuration on how these guys are disposed in the screen. This is another example of design system that uses this concept of server-driven UI. In the Kotlin conference in 2019, the guys from the Airbnb have talked a lot about this system that they have created. This is their Beagle, right? It's called Lona. It is the server-driven framework that they have developed, and we don't use it. We use Beagle, that is an open source framework, right? That will help you guys to implement server-driven UI concept. So here he talks about the how to implement this, the benefits. He developed a concept of row components, that are components that happens most of the time together and in a similar way, like these guys here, back arrow, sharing components, and a heart-like component. So it is wise when you are trying to make your UI build more dynamic, that if these guys are called almost all the time in the same way, you have a bigger component that will call all these three guys together only in this disposition. So what is they call row components, it is applied for all these other components here, and they could be a single component, they could be a part of another bigger component. you will be reusing components, and that's the key word when we're talking about server-driven UI. Here we have an example of server-driven UI, as we have shown that before. When you use a framework that is already set to help you use a server-driven UI components, they have a set of benefits, and this is one of them that we in Beagle we call it context. That is a functionality that will help a component to trade information with the other. So you can see that if you click in the colors, the price here changes. This is because this component here is talking to this component and switching the prices here. Here we have another example of navigation. We have an alert when you click on the heart, and you have a navigation when you click add to cart. And when you configure all these from the back end, so I can change the paths here in the bottom. I could change this flux. I could create a whole other flux of screens, right? Just by changing the action that is called, or a list of actions that is called here. This is another example of segmentation that I told you guys I was going to talk about. And the segmentation is a concept that it's like implementing a circle of persons that are going to access this. For example, I want to everyone that is in the city Delhi to be able to see this interface over here with the Swiggy store options. Swiggy is like an iFood from India, and I don't want them to see this if I only want them to see this if they are in cities that don't offer Swiggy stores. So when you use these components like in server-driven UI, when you build the screen like a server-driven screen, I can create in my backend some logic to check where this customer is accessing from, and that will present to him a different option, right? And when he's not in the city that I want this to appear, he will see this different screen. So the user won't see the difference, and that helps the interaction with the application. Well, as spoken before about the hypothesis testing, hypothesis, you can test a very large amount of screens that your creativity is the limit. And you can just define that, well, every customer will access my screens here. This is the default, but I can segment. I can show alternate design options to customers with a variety of traits that I can set. For example, if I want people that uses Android 8 configuration in their Android applications to access this alternate design too, because the default design may have something, a bug or something with Android 8. So I can change the design. I can test this with different group of people to see who clicks in what design and else. So when you use applications with the server-driven UI, you can change very easily how the screens are configured. And also we have commenting about this guy here. This is another open source product that we have been in contact with that is called Charge CD. And the Charge CD does a lot of stuff. I will leave a link if you guys want to know this guy more. But for the sake of this presentation, what he does to us is he's able to segment which backend my user will access, what group of screens or components he's going to access according to informations I will define on my front end. For example, I can define the Android, if it is Android 7, if it is Android 8 that my user is going to use, if it is in a determined city, or if he's a man, or if it is a girl. Well, I can define what traits I want the application to take into consideration when using this, right? Here I have a few examples that were built using an application that uses Beagle. right? Just for the sake of showing that this is just a regular application. It has no difference in how you visualize or how these components are presented or used by the user. Maybe one thing that we must always make clear is those this is a application that uses Beagle, and all those components are native components, right? They're no different than native components. What Beagle does is you get information from the back end, you will receive a bunch of information that will say the size of these list view items, the image where they are going to be disposed, and the text here, the color of the text, how what color is the background. All this information is coming from the back end, and what Beagle will do in the front end is tell to Android, here in this example, what to create and where to create, right? And uh, for concluding this theoric part, before Lucas gives you guys some coding, this is four very important concepts about server-driven UI that we must attend to, right? Server-driven UI helps you abstract the design system. It transfers most of the UI and some logic to the backend, so it makes easier to modify UI interfaces. You can reuse components, right? Componentization stuffs, the example of row components, and it makes it possible to use a great number of elements grouped together, and will help you build UI very, very, very quickly. So it will it will help you make it more dynamic to create or to update UI. How's my time?
Okay, can you pass to the last slide? So later.
I'm just going to say these last two words. It optimizes your experimentation. It gives you dynamic code, and it makes your updates more dynamic because it lets you skip the start time to update and publish new releases. All right. Uh, I we will make this available to you guys if you want to check. The first and the last options are in English, but the two in the middle are in Portuguese, but Google will help you guys with it if you need to translate it to English or any other language. Let's code, Lucas.
Let's code. You could use this QR code to see the project that I will show. So if you want to access the code, you can use this QR code, or to access the link that I will send here now. So just a moment.
Do you want me to stop sharing my screen?
Yeah, could you stop sharing my screen and hit show my screen, please? Oh. So you can access Beagle examples, and the first link, you will see this this code. So here we had a lot of examples of applications that use Beagle to the server-driven UI concept. So I will show some codes how to use Beagle, but Beagle is not the only tool to implement this concept. So you can apply this concept using your way, but Beagle help you to do this more easily. So it's a open source tool, and if you want to just try to see how Beagle do server-driven UI, you can access the playground. So at here we had a JSON. So this JSON describes the screen here. So if you click at access the fast guide, you will see other screen, and that JSON here describe the other screen. So here you can change the JSON to see things changing here. So we could change this text or remove this texts. If we remove this text here, so this is a Beagle component, Beagle text, and describe, use the panel on the left to start coding. So we can just remove that update here and remove it. So we can try a lot of things here. You can see all of the default components, list view, grid samples, component iteration. So here we had a zip code sample. If you want to call a service from backend, so this JSON come from backend. So at backend you can call other services to get data from the backend. So here, if we put a zip code here and change the context, click at the data will be updated here at this components. And here we have the description of this screen. So here we are using a JSON, but you can use the Kotlin DCL to describe your screens from backend. So how do you use Beagle to describe screens using Kotlin DCL from backend? You just had to add Beagle to your resource like dependency. So here we had Beagle as a dependence of this project. We are using 1.9 version. And if you put Beagle as a dependence in your backend, this is a backend using Spring. So is just a backend. You will access the Kotlin DSL. So you can use Kotlin DSL to describe your screens. So first, you had to use Beagle as a dependence at your backend and your mobile application. So you had to add Beagle as a dependence in your iOS project and in your Android project. So using Beagle as a dependence at backend and Android and iOS, you could use Kotlin DSL to describe your screens. That screens will be sent to the front end. So here we had a controls using Spring. Um, Spring. I forgot the name of this. Is oh, I forgot that. Sorry about. Here we had a mapping of the URLs. So you will return to the URL a Kotlin DSL screen. So Beagle will get the DSL, will encode to a JSON. The JSON will be sent to the front end. The front end will get the JSON, will decode the JSON and transform in native components. So it's important to talk that is all here that I will show you is native components, is native code, is native component. Beagle is not a web view. So here we are using native components. Beagle offers a bunch of default components, but you can use your own components. Here we had an example. This component here is a custom component that we had implemented on the iOS. So counterbalance view. So it's using code view. So here this component is described natively at the iOS and is described natively at the Android. So account balance component. This component, remember, this component is fully implemented at the Android Android that iOS using native code. Is a native component. So what I had to do to add this component to the Beagle, I will use the widget protocol. So I will implement the register widget at the Android, and I will use the account balance protocol, widget protocol, to implement this at the iOS. So after that, I had to get the same component to the backend. So here I had a widget. So I had to register at the Android, at the iOS, and at the backend. So if I do that, I can use the account balance component at my back end. So here I had a example using account balance component that will receive balance. So I can use this native component here, custom component, to I add to Beagle, and I can use as I want. So here I had a login example. So let me run that again to show my login looks here. I had that entire screen described from backend. So I had a navigation bar describing login here. At the content of the view, I had a text here and a text input. So I can just change as I want and add other components here, like I can duplicate this. So to show example, and change this to password here, and I can change this to password. And if I run again, I will upload my backend. So is imagine that we are we are generating another version of the my backend. And if I update this, just wait. So my backend is running here. So just wait. And now I can see a password here. So I don't change my front end code. Is this entire screen is described from the back end, and I can change components, I can add components, I can edit components, edit texts, edit buttons, I can tô presente. Sorry. And I had I cannot add, I can edit, I can remove components and as I want. So let's remove that component from here. So it's just to show you how to change your screens. So I removed a wrong component. Sorry. Text input here. Okay, I will run that again to update my backend. So is it to show you how you can use the Beagle to remove the description of the screens from the iOS and the Android, put that description at the backend, and use this to update your app without going through stores. You can change the fluxes, you can change navigations, you can change actions, logics, service callings. You can change whatever you want about your UI, about your logic, and without going through stores. And you will control switch user will see switch version. You can make sure that your user will see what your backend want that the user see. So you can change navigation fluxes. So here we had two screens. So let me update here again. So replace. Okay. Here we had two screens. First one is to put your CPF. The second one is to put your password. So, it's important to show that we can make um, business logic from the backend. At the password screen, if I put the wrong password, that is a password that is not 1234556, I will see an alert. So at the back end, I can implement business logic. So if I put a CPF different of 123456789, I will see an alert. Attention, invalid CPF here at the login screen. So if I put a different CPF, I will get this alert. Here we could call another service. We could call service to see if the CPF is on my database. And but here is just example and how you can use conditions to implement your business logic. So, but if we want, we can call other service to get the user information, to get the user login information. And here I had to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and here we had to use this password here. So we will go to native screen. So here we navigate from entire screen described at my backend, and we could open a native screen. So here I had a native described at the front end. Here I had a native screen here, and we are using Beagle in just one view. So there is a Beagle view here, two Beagle views here to describe just the menu and this page list here. So how Beagle is native, I can use Beagle and just a piece of my entire screen. I had a native screen, and I just want to use Beagle at my menu. I can add Beagle just at menu. So here we have described this component. There is a carousel options component, this component here. And to get the information of this component here, we're using Mach, but we can make connections using the backend with other services. So here I had the icons, I had the titles of this menu. So all of this is from this URL. So I call this URL, I get this URL information, and I use the information to make my carousel options. So I can use Beagle to implement logic. I can use Beagle to change, to edit, to add, to delete components from the front end. I can implement service calls, and I can implement fluxes. all I want to change, I can use Bigo to do at the back end. So here I had an example. If I click here, I will see this alert that I implemented here. And remember, I I'm using a free example, open example of the Bigo, and all of this code is here. You just need or Android Studio or Xcode and IntelliJ to upload your backend, and you just had to run the sample, Bigo sample backend, and choose Android or iOS Bigo sample, and you will see that, and you can change the code to see this thing are being updated on your screen. So it's that I had to show you as a code. You can change everything you want here, and to see how what Bigo can do. And let's open to questions. Carlos, you had something to add?
Well, want to add something. It is important to notice that why we showing you this is also to make you aware of server-driven UI and how it is being used, but also to make you aware of there are frameworks available and how it's great to be able to use a framework that have been tested and implemented. So just you guys know, this list view component, as we are maintainers of this project, we are in constant contact with people that work on this product. We have worked in this product ourselves, and just this list view component, he was being adjusted for around like 3 months with two specialists in Android to make this work and to make it a very well tested component that are able to use the most recent technologies in Android to reuse views. Android does this when he creates a list view. If you have 20 items in your list view, it doesn't create all the 20 items. It just creates what is being shown on the screen. And we have make certain that the list view that we create uses that as well, because all this information will be coming from Bigo. How to reuse this, how to set, because we set IDs on this, we can set IDs on these components, on those items, right? So the beauty of using a framework that's already been tested is that you save a lot of time. We can say, well, but you may think, well, do I need to use? Well, you can code using a txt file, but we don't do that because the IDEs gave us a lot of functionalities and uses that will help us programming. So the same thing, as long as you build the screen that respects the contract that Bibo sets, you don't need to have Bigo in your back end. But if you build a JSON respecting the contracts, you are able to consume it with Bigo in your front end using the JSON, right?
It's all
But
about contract. It's all about
it's
contract.
all about the contract, right? And the beauty of it is because you can have a back end for all your applications with the logic of the components set on the back end. And we have the full components, we have the full actions for navigation, for pop stack, pop view, and resets application and everything. We have conditional components that will consider something to display a component or not. We have operations components that will like make a sum of something and will display one view if that sum is something or above something or minor. Well, operations, right? And we have an extensive documentation where you can check how to use, check what has the full options. And Bigo is very well acclaimed with our contacts that use it because it is could be described as a general applications. Well, it has the full components, but it gives you ability to create
General.
anything you wish. A components as complex as you want it to be, and we will set just properties on the back end. You can set logic there. Yes, you can, but you will just set on the front end, making an annotation for Beagle understand that well in the front end this guy will be handled like this component or that component, and that is very easy. I have talked about styles. Some can be set on the back end, some can be set on the front end as well. But you can use any function Android iOS has. And why we do that? Because the text component on Android have been extensively tested by Google. All the components in Android are extensively tested. How these components talk to the camera, how these components react to map applications are very well tested. So we don't have to mix that, right? We don't have to enter on that. Bigo just tell you the Android, well, I have this information coming from the back end, so I will map this and create a component on the front end that has this distance from the sides, that has this color, that has these other components inside it. So all the components are native. This is very important to make it clear. You're not dealing with WebView. You are dealing with a possibility to create components, to define UI interfaces in your backend, but using components that are very robust, that are very tested and well developed components from Android on the front end. So the components are native. That's
So
it.
that is that
We have
is
questions.
that is all. That is all. We had questions. You had questions. Some questions.
Yeah, this
Any
is
questions from everyone at home? Carlos, Lucas, thank you so much for this. I think it was quite insightful. So maybe just let's leave some time for people to think of questions, comments, or anything that you'd
yes.
like to mention to you.
Just
Go
let
ahead.
me add something more. The,
Of course.
the, the best thing of it is open source. This is an open source project maintained from Zoop, from the company we work on. We have been blessed with the opportunity to work on this project, to help improve this project, to talk to community, and this is an open source application. If you have seen something here in this presentation or in our code that well, I could do that better, please do. That's what we want, right? We want to share this code that we have helped develop, that we help maintain. We want to share this with you. Feel free to use it to open questions in our forum, in our repositories and GitHub. Ask your questions, try to use it, give us feedback, tell us what we need to improve. 100% does not exist, we know that. Is just a reference, right? Everything could be improved and everything could be better, and we know that, and that's what we are trying to do.
Okay. Thank you so much.
It's
So
not a
thank
hybrid application, Maximilian. Yes,
No,
you're
it's
right.
not.
It's not hybrid. Then we are about to release in the next 2 weeks, probably.
you.
We have a set release for Bigo 2.0, right? And Bigo 2.0, well, now in the current version, that's 1.10. Bigo gave support to React, to Angular, to Android, iOS, right? And in the next version, the 2.0, we will give support to Flutter applications. So you are going to be able to use Bigo with Flutter, and we intend to advance that for other front ends.
Cool. Very cool.
Cool.
And also, Maxi, thank you for this comment of yours in our chat. Carlos and Lucas, imagine that some people over there that are watching us have questions but not exactly know or would like to reach out via other channels. Where can they find you?
Let me share again our
Information. Let me show. I had here. So
I'm going to share again.
Here?
Yes.
Nice.
You guys
you
get
can
it?
use this QR code to access all my social medias. So be free to make connection.
Nice. So over there at home, everyone watching us. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments for Carlos, for Lucas, or for both of them, you know what to do. Just scan this QR code, and you can get in touch with them afterwards. And if you all agree, I think it would be a great timing for us to finish this awesome hour that we spent all together. Carlos and Lucas, it was awesome to have you here. I think everyone over there at home also agrees. And we also already have a comment saying that GG, sorry, and Lucas are amazing. They always rock. It's true indeed. And Maxi, it's a true also follower of our YouTube channel. So it's always great also to have these compliments to our speakers. So congrats, guys. Thank you so much for taking some of your time for this conversation of ours. So let's leave either way space for all questions that you might have in other channels for Carlos and Lucas. Go ahead, please do. Nunu also enjoyed the presentation. So great presentation. Thank you, guys. Also, thank you, Nunu, for joining. It's nice to come in here. Do you have any final words for today, Carlos and Lucas?
Lucas?
No, thank you so much to be here. It's a pleasure to share some knowledge, and thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you, guys.
I just have a final word. I have heard this from a friend that used to work with us. There is Romar. Romar always said, I have been bitten by the open source bug. And open source is something very, very incredible to work with. And we hope that you have shared with you our passion about this project, about this possibility to develop open source programs. It's not common. It's more like most of the time something that you do in your spare time and not for living. And we are blessed to do this for a living.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. And we like to think that over here at X6, we were also beaten by that bug, you know. So so awesome to know that we also share the same vision on that. And Carlos and Lucas, thank you once again for your presentation, your content, and your insights, and also for sharing your contacts to everyone over there at home. It was nice to have you all here, and it was also very nice to see everyone over there at home. Just to keep in touch for next live streams of ours. And if you have any feedback or if you'd like to know anything about anything else about us, you know what to do. Just follow our social media channels, and we'll give you updates on that. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.